We're live.
Thank you very much. Good morning, board members, members of the public, our educators. I want to welcome you. Today is Monday, June 1st. This is the Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Board meeting. This meeting is being held via WebEx due to COVID-19 and the situation we are having. We want to make sure everybody is safe and able to participate from their homes or offices, and that we can still be available to the public. There is a link on the website if you know of anyone that needs to listen in and wants to participate as well. Everyone is welcome. I'll take a quick moment to go over these situations with the difference in the meeting. We are doing only video to make sure that, I apologize, only audio to make sure that people don't get bumped off, and the recording will be posted on the website. Also, if everyone will please have us on mute except the board members while we do motions, and then there will be plenty of time for people to ask questions when we get to the end. We have 10 schools being presented today, so that's the heavy portion of our meeting. And Chairman Ron Gillihan, I know that you're with us. If it's okay with you, given the situation with the WebEx, I'll do a lot of the moving from one piece to the other, but definitely anytime you have anything you want to add or slow me down, feel free to jump in. Are you there, Mr. Gillihan?
I am here, Roxanna. That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. So the first piece of announcement is that the agenda was posted on the board's website on May the 27th. The link to the meeting itself has been posted for at least 2 or 3 weeks, so people would be aware of the meeting and able to join us. The other important piece to note is that we were scheduled to have rulemaking hearing during this meeting, and that was changed. We will have that rulemaking hearing as soon as we are able to be in the building and have an in-person meeting so more members of the public can join us. So we will get started. We want to welcome everyone that is participating with us, and I will start by doing roll call and then kind of follow the steps that we have on the agenda. The agenda is posted online if that helps anyone else as well. And then because this is done via WebEx, we will be taking all votes through roll call. So let me start by going through our board members to make sure that we have quorum. When I call your name, if you can please unmute your button and let me know that you are here. Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ron Gillihan.
Here.
Ms. Kelly Barger.
Here.
Vice Chair, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Judy McAllister.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Patricia Richmond Parsons. Okay. Ms. Mona Sappenfield.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Frank Ambusa. Frank had left notice that he would not be able to participate with us, so I have him not with us today and won't be calling out his name. Ms. Amy Tanksley.
Here.
Ms. Anita Charlton.
Here.
Ms. Waive Granger. Ms. Rebecca Russell.
Here.
Ms. Janie Ross. Ms. Janie Ross.
Here.
Thank you. And Ms. Susan Witcher.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We have 9 members participating via WebEx telephonically. We also have 2 that have either will be joining us or having some difficulties and will join us soon. So we definitely have quorum. Chairman Gillihan, if it's okay with you, I will proceed with the rest of the meeting.
That is absolutely fine. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Hugh Cross is the attorney for the program. I'm going to turn it over to Hugh to do the statement of necessity.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great now. Thank you, Hugh.
Great. You're welcome. According to TCA Section 844-108B2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, the governing body must file such determination of necessity, including the resuscitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based, with the Office of Secretary of State no later than 2 working days after the meeting. Furthermore, TCA Section 844-108A3 defines necessity as Matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body. That a physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the Tennessee Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners, and the purpose of today's meeting with some of them, well, in this case, all of the members attending by teleconference is to discuss the agenda as noticed on the website earlier. And that concludes the statement of necessity.
Thank you, Hugh. I believe we need a motion to accept that.
Yes.
I make a
Do
motion.
we have a motion?
I believe that motion was made by Ms. Witcher. Is that correct?
No, I didn't make that, but I will.
Ms. Ross.
Ms. Ross, I will put yours down as a second motion. So we have a motion made by Ms. Susan Witcher and a second by Ms. Janie Ross.
Yes.
I will do roll call for the acceptance of the statement of necessity. Ron Gillihan,
Yes.
Kelly Barger,
Yes.
Judy McAllister,
Yes.
Mona Sappenfield,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Anita Charlton,
Yes.
Rebecca Russell,
Yes.
Katie Russ,
Yes.
and Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. We will proceed. The next item on your agenda is acceptance of the February 3rd, 2020 board meeting minutes. The board members were all sent via email the minutes from the last meeting, which, as you know, the April meeting had to be canceled due to not enough urgent board business and the changes with COVID-19. And so we moved everything to this board meeting. Therefore, the April minutes are the last that we had meeting minutes that we've done. I would need a motion and a second to accept those. And if when you motion, you can give me your name, please.
I make the motion to accept the minute. Judy McAllister.
Thank you, Judy. That is a motion. Can I have a second?
Second. Janie Ross.
Ms. Ross, thank you for a second. By roll call to accept the minutes, Ron Gillihan,
Yes.
Kelly Barger,
Yes.
Judy McAllister,
Yes.
Mona Sappenfield,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Anita Charlton,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Janie Ross,
Yes.
and Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes have been accepted. We will proceed with the full meeting, and as presented before the board, and this particular time obviously not appearing in person, these schools have all presented applications, and I believe most, if not all, have members from their school participating telephonically. Our board members were sent a link and instructions on how to get to a secure site for the full board meeting documents. Normally on our iPads, this would be the presentation. So we're going to start with the first one on your agenda. This is Miller-Mott Technical College out of Chattanooga. The director, Mr. Jay Frank, executive director for the school, completed the school application to change the name of the school to Miller-Mott College. The school is located in Chattanooga. If there are no questions, I will accept a motion and a second to accept the school name change.
I will make the motion for the school name change. Judy McAllister.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I will second it. Mona
Second.
Sappenfield.
We have a second from Ms. Mona Sappenfield, and this is to accept our first application, which is a name change for Miller-Mott College. Mr. Ron Gillihan,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger,
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield,
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton,
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. We move on to your presentation, and if you're following along, on page 4 is the change of location, and this change of location is for Goshen School of Cosmetology. Ms. Latanya Williams-Bradley is, I believe, participating telephonically with us to answer any questions you might have. The school is located in Memphis. The floor plan, application, and fee were all received timely. If anyone from the board has any questions to ask, I will let you go ahead and ask those questions now before we proceed.
Roxana, this is Ron. I had a question for Ms. Bradley. It's very simple. How far are you moving the school from its current location, and is that going to present a hardship for any of the students to be able to make that change?
Ms. Latanya Williams, are you participating with us? I don't see her name on the list, and I don't hear her. I know, Ron, what I can answer, if that's okay with you, is she had originally rented one location, thinking that we would have the meeting in April, and something fell through. So she's actually moved twice. It's my understanding that it is not a distant move. It just was space that made more sense for her. So it shouldn't be an inconvenience, and it isn't. That wouldn't actually be a reason we would deny the move either. But if you need anything else, I can make sure that she answers it. But she's again was faced with a second hardship of moving and presenting a brand new floor plan. So on the presentation on page 5, she has the floor plan she's drawn out. It includes all the pieces. And if that question suffices for you, then we can motion to approve her. And normally with a new school or a new location, we still send a field inspector and board member. So I'll let you, Mr. Gillihan, decide how to make the motion.
No, that's fine. It was just really a question of curiosity. I always
Absolutely.
like to check on the students. I didn't see any problems or difficulties with this. If we have a motion.
Do we have a motion to accept the change in location for Goshen School of Cosmetology?
I will make the motion for the change. This is Judy McAllister.
Thank you, Ms. McAllister. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Kelly Barger.
Ms. Barger, thank you for the second motion. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
And Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. That change of location was approved unanimously by roll call vote. We will move on to the next school. And this school, if you're following the presentation, starts on page 6. This is Mid-South Cosmetology and Barber Association. Ms. Shadana Banks is joining us, so she'll be happy to answer any questions you have. This school is located in Memphis. They are offering apprenticeship only. The school is a total of 1,800 square feet. The business license, curriculum, blank contract, floor plan, contingency plan, the application and fee were all received timely. I welcome any questions that you have, and at that point, we would have Ms. Banks unmute her button and answer any questions the board has before we proceed.
Good morning.
Roxana, I'm sorry. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Good morning. Was that Ms. Banks?
Yes, I was just speaking.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. I think Mr. Gillihan, I'll turn it over to you if you had any questions or other comments.
I do, and pardon me for just a moment. I'm actually kind of going through some of my notes here. Let's see. On the enrollment agreement for this school, I don't see it designated anywhere where it specifically says or the student elects or acknowledges that they are participating in a strictly apprenticeship program. If I were looking at this just as an individual who had never been in a school before, I wouldn't know if it was in-house or not. So that's something that probably needs to be taken a look at. As I went through their application, I noticed that several places throughout their paperwork, oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. I didn't see a curriculum for this. Roxana, you may have said, did they submit their curriculum with the program?
Everything that they've submitted, Ron, is on the presentation. So if you think we're missing something, the enrollment agreement is there. I guess where I see the clear path to apprenticeship would be in where they on the presentation on page 10, they have an apprenticeship program only. But I agree with you. I think it'd be good if the contract itself may be somewhere included, apprenticeship only. That'll help you, Ms. Banks, with your students not being, confused or thinking you've got the square footage to offer practical hours as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I didn't see an actual curriculum anywhere of how they're going to, let me see if I'm crossed another line. I'll take that back. I see it on page 23. I found that one.
Got it. You got it.
Okay. What was the total square footage of the school?
Ms. Banks, I believe it's
1,800 square.
1,800, yeah.
1,800 square footage.
18. Okay.
Yes.
Also, I had a note, there's no grading standard or procedures or minimum requirements for graduation listed in this document. So how would a student know that they have actually met standard for graduation for grading other than the fact that they attend for 1,500 hours?
Well, first they have to go, after they graduate from the theory class, they will have to go take the test. And then after they take the test, they'll have to go to the salon. And they have to finish the hours. Do I need to put that in the
Well, I think that a student probably needs to know whether a 60 is going to be a passing grade or an 80 or a 90. There's nothing that indicates that for the student. So how would they know if they're actually meeting the standard? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I have it in the grade in their handbook, but I'll go ahead and put that.
If it's in the catalog, I think that's probably okay. But
yes,
I just didn't see it in the catalog. Okay. You want one more trip through this list?
This is a quick pointer to Ron, while you're looking at these things, to the full board that's also participating. This will be our first full cosmetology apprenticeship school. We've got apprenticeship specialty schools, but this will be the first one that is actually the full cosmetology. So you've got Ms. Banks' presentation in front of you. I want to make sure, Ms. Banks, that you hopefully, and I'm sure you do, but just to keep in mind that you've got a good stream of licensed professionals with the 10 years of licensure, that you vet those through our website under verify.tn.gov to make sure that they have the 10 years, because you'll be feeding these students directly to that professional. And there's nothing in the statute that says what you need from them, but anytime an apprenticeship school starts, I want to make sure that you've got a good path to more professionals to turn your students to, so that they're not delayed.
Yes, I do. I also have a packet for the salon, for the stylist as well, when they do get an apprentice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Ms. Banks, I just have just one more question for you, I believe. Reading through your emergency plans here, I noticed that you identified 2 separate schools as locations that you would relocate to in the event of an emergency. One appears to be a barber school, and the other appears to be cosmetology. Just from what I'm kind of looking at here, are those actually licensed schools? Do you know if they're current and they're able to accept folks from you?
Yes,
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I had on this one, Roxana.
Okay, Ms. Banks, I did have one more question. The name of the school is Mid-South Cosmetology and Barber Association, and there's nothing that says that you wouldn't be able to, have barber in the name, but are you planning to also get licensed as a barber school?
Later on. Right now, I'm just going to focus on in the beauty industry.
In the cosmetology industry?
Yes, cosmetology industry.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Those were all the questions I had. And board members, if any of you have any other questions of Ms. Banks, please unmute yourself and I'll let you ask your questions.
Roxana, this is Becky, and I had a few questions.
You go right ahead, ma'am.
Okay. As I was going through this information on pages 11, 14, 17, and 20, it says that if a student withdraws, the balance would be due to Beauty and Health Institute, and I was confused about why it would be due to a different institute.
Well, that was actually if it's due to another institute or another cosmetology school, we will have to take care of that first if they owe another school.
This, the way that it's worded, it sounds like if they were to withdraw from your school, or if they were maybe kicked out from your school and they owed money to your school, it was saying that that money would be due to Beauty and Health Institute. It may just be a clerical thing that you need to look through and clean up. Just check that for me. And then on pages 16, 19, and 22, you've got aesthetics, manicuring, and instructor students that would be signing a cosmetology agreement. This, again, is probably a clerical thing that just needs to say that if they're an aesthetic student, that they are signing an esthetician's agreement or a manicuring agreement or instructor's agreement. And then lastly, in the curriculum on page 23, you have referenced Ohio law, not Tennessee's law.
Because I was referencing their laws, trying to see what their laws was compared to our laws.
So are they going to be studying Ohio's laws or Tennessee's laws?
No, that was the error.
Okay.
Ms. Russell, I appreciate your catches. Ms. Banks, we'll let the board motion, but until those revisions aren't, I will need those revisions just sent directly to me if you can make them, and then we'll proceed with whatever the board decides. If it's okay with the board to not have her represent in August, but those items that Ms. Russell pointed out, I think are important.
Okay, I'll send that information to you.
You've got it. Perfect. Any other questions from anyone else? Hearing none, I welcome a motion, and in this particular case, it is a new school, so we will have a field inspector go out as well as a board member. Ms. Banks, once you send me the revised documents, if the board chooses to motion for us to continue, then let me know when you'll be ready to be inspected, and we'll need 10 days to get a board member as well as field inspector out there. So I will welcome a motion if the board chooses to do so. We're still looking at Mid-South Cosmetology and Barber Association, a new school application. This school is a new apprenticeship school. Do we have any other questions for Ms. Banks?
This is Kelly Barker. I'll make the motion to approve the request for new school after the clerical revisions are made and received.
Thank you, Ms. Barger. We have a motion upon clarification and corrections of those items pointed out. We have a motion to send a field inspector and board member to inspect the school and then possibly approve. Do we have a second?
This is Yvette Granger. I second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Granger. And you must have just called in after we started. I don't know if, Dustin, you can find which caller Ms. Granger is, but if not, Ms. Granger, thank you for letting us know that you are with us. I appreciate it. We have a motion by Ms. Kelly Barger and a second by Ms. Waive Granger. I will start on roll call to see if the full.
Hold on. Sorry, Roxanne. Ms. Granger, can you speak again so I can identify which user you are?
Yes, this is Yvette Granger.
Oh, sorry. She's on there. Yeah,
Yes.
she's got her name. Yeah, she's got her name listed already.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, we'll do roll call. Mr. Ron Gillahan. Kelly Barger.
Yes.
Judy McAllister.
Yes.
Ms. Patricia Richmond Parsons, have you been able to join us? Okay. Ms. Mona Sappenfield.
Yes.
Ms. Anita Tansley.
This is Amy Tankley, yes.
Amy, thank you. Ms. Amy Tansley. Ms. Anita Charlton.
Yes.
Ms. Waive Granger.
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell.
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross. Ms. Janie Ross. We can't
She's
hear.
on mute.
She's on mute. Okay. Ms. Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Okay. We still have quorum, so we are okay. We have a motion and a second and a unanimous vote. We will move ahead to our next school item. And this is on your iPads. If you're following along with the presentation and not your iPads, I apologize. This is starting on page 36, and the school listed in front of you is listed as Mid-Tennessee Beauty College, LLC. They meant for the school name to be actually listed as Sheer Perfection Academy of Charlotte. This is a new school application, and we have revised the name. I believe we have, as John Lillard has pointed out, the individual new school owner has actually gone to the building, so I'm glad that we've got some staff there today. We are otherwise not working from the building. The agendas are always posted online for the most current information, and links were sent to all of our school owners so that they would participate telephonically. But I believe we have Mr. James Ming Pham in the building, being able to join us and listen in. So this particular application is for a school located in Nashville. The school is over 4,000 square feet. We have the business license, curriculum, blank contract, floor plan, the contingency plan, the application and fees were all received timely. And I'll let the board ask any questions you have, knowing that he is there in the building. He can hopefully answer any questions you have. Someone has some background noise, but it may be Mr. Pham, so I will let you, the board members, ask any questions that you have.
Yes, ma'am.
Roxana, this is Ron. Pardon me. You did say that in their paperwork, they have corrected the name issues.
Yes, they meant for the school to be Sheer Perfection Academy of Charlotte, and we added their email. The situation was when it was typed online, I believe connected to a shop, and so it brought over that name of the LLC. And so that has been corrected. The floor plan looks very thorough, but I will turn all that over to you. Mr. Pham, I did have a question. This is an LLC. Is the ownership that is associated with the other Sheer Perfection School, Ms. Helen Arati and Mr. Melvin, are they also associated with this school?
Yeah, it will be later.
Will be later, but they're not now?
No.
Okay. And I believe, Ron, and to the board members, this application goes from page 36 to page 87. I did, because of the name situation, include the business license for you to review and the ownership. And it is an LLC. That's toward the end of the application.
Well, I guess I'll start off, and then anybody else that needs to jump in is perfectly wonderful. In your agreements here, you're saying that as an apprentice, that student may not need the kit, so they may opt out and receive a credit. I'm reading from your paperwork. The state regulations require that all students receive a kit by 100 hours. So that would be improper, I believe.
Correct.
The grading system for graduation requirements is different in the contract versus the catalog. You're having at least two different grading requirements, two different numbers for that. So that's a non-match. It could be just a typo. In the catalog, the addresses for the school are different than they are in the enrollment agreement on the application. So it looks like that's multiple places that will be directing students to. Partly in your curriculum listed in the instructor program, it shows that you're offering in that curriculum reception desk 10 hours, inventory 10 hours, cash handling 10 hours. I don't believe those are listed as part of the required state curriculum and where those hours would be coming from.
Not at all.
Not at all. The instructor's curriculum states in your catalog that your curriculum is no less than a total of 100 clock hours or 3 credit hours in lesson planning and motivation. However, the time that you have actually listed in your curriculum includes 50 hours of lesson planning and 10 hours of motivation as line items that are not meeting the standard that you actually put in your own paperwork. Those are some of the major concerns I have about this. There seems to be quite a bit of inconsistency in this, and particularly with locations, different addresses where students are being directed and those things. That's all I had.
Thank you, Ron. Those were very good questions. I appreciate that. Anyone else, members of the board, anyone else had other questions regarding the school application?
Ma'am.
Yes, who is this?
This is LaTanya Williams Bradley, the owner of Goshen School of Cosmetology.
Ms. Bradley, we went through yours already. We're on a different school right now. They approved yours, so you and I can connect later today if that's good with you.
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
All right. Mr. Pham, I'll turn it back over to you, and if everyone else will mute themselves. Anyone else from the board had questions? Mr. Gilliam pointed out several inconsistencies and errors of concern. So if anyone else has any other questions or items that need to be clarified. Hearing none. Ron, I will turn it to you. Would you like to do a motion, or would you like this represented in August with all the different revisions you've pointed out?
Roxana, there's so many different things in here. I think this would call for a represent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do we need a motion on that?
We do. We would need a motion to represent, going over all of the items that you have pointed out. They are very well noted. Mr. Pham, if you've not been able to write them down and clarify them, you'll need to just go through the entire curriculum piece, make sure that it's consistent, and then the video will be posted so you can actually re-listen to the different pieces or reach me sometime after you've made your revisions and we can go over it again. So yes, we do need a motion to have the corrections made because they are numerous and of significant value, and therefore we would need to represent it based on what I'm hearing you say in August.
Can we make those changes today and we send it, submit it to you today? Or we having some help with this Protection Academy to help us making those changes. We can make that change today and submit it right back.
I believe what the chairman said is that they are significant changes. They're not minor. They're significant in showing some understanding of all the moving pieces that are involved, of what your kids should be, how they should be treated to meet the statute. And so I will let the chairman decide and do a motion. And if their motion is to wait until August, then that's what would happen.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Do we have a motion?
Make the recommendation that we wait until August until all these inconsistencies are cleared up. Judy McCullough.
Thank you, Ms. McAllister. We have a motion to wait until the August 3rd board meeting due to the inconsistency and several different concerning items on the contract as well as the requirements for the students. Do we have a second?
Jenny Ross.
Ms. Jamie Ross, we have a second. I will go through roll call, and this is to postpone approval of this school until all the revisions are made, and we will represent those for the board to review at the August meeting. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Patricia Richmond? Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Waive Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. We will proceed to our next item on the agenda, and this is Dream Beauty Academy, New School of Cosmetology. This school is being presented by Ms. April Hardin. Ms. Hardin is participating telephonically with us, and if the board has any questions, she will make sure to unmute and be able to answer your questions. This school is located in Knoxville. It is 3,200 square feet. The business license, curriculum, blank contract, floor plan, the contingency plan, application and fee were all received timely. I will turn it over to the board for any questions they have. And on your presentation, the school starts on page 88.
Roxana, again, when I'm looking through these documents, I don't see the school's curriculum being presented. I believe that's one of the requirements that we have. Let me get to my notes. They don't seem to have any minimum requirements for graduation listed. Also, which would probably be with their curriculum or their contracts or their catalogs. The other thing I've noticed is they don't have a minimum grade requirement, so the student would know what was acceptable work. In their documents, I'm not seeing anywhere where it lists the minimum age for enrollment and no requirements to present either high school diplomas, GEDs, or the education requirements that we have. And those are the concerns I have on this one.
Ms. Harding, are you there and can answer any of those questions that Mr. Gillihan had?
Yes, I am here. And actually, I did not. I will be honest. I don't know how I missed it because I went through that packet several times. And I do have my curriculum and actually another addendum that I wanted to present to you guys that is that I'm wanting to do like a distance learning, which is going to be, I guess, an addendum to my contingency plan with the whole COVID-19. So I do have those documents and I can give them over to you as soon as possible. But I just wanted to let you know that I did notice that I missed out my curriculum page.
Can I ask you, ma'am, this is Ron. Can I ask you, is any of this being treated as apprenticeships, or is this all in-house for you?
Actually, the new way that I'm wanting to do this is going to be actually, I guess, program, so it will be in-house, and I wanted to offer for anyone that can attend, because any ongoing circumstance with the whole COVID pandemic, it will be offered. I do have a plan in place for online courses and apprenticeship program, so it will be both in-house and apprenticeships and online courses. And Miss Roxana, I had sent an email over to you. I didn't get this completed by May. I think I had spoken to you on the phone when I asked you about doing the online after all this stuff happened, when you guys canceled the April meeting. And that's when I had got, the idea to kind of change up my plan to do something different when I actually was able to open. So I didn't get that to you by May 1st, but I did send an email to you. You'll probably have that, after your meeting. I sent it to you earlier this morning.
Okay. I think turning back to what Mr. Gillihan said, that the changes that you're planning on making sound wonderful, but the board would have to probably review those. They're significant changes. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Roxana, I'd like to hear any other members that have any questions or concerned about this. But considering the things that I'm hearing, there's several revisions and changes that she wants to make in addition to the concerns that I have here. This might be another candidate for resubmission. That's just my own personal opinion, but I'd like to hear other comments if there are any, and then we'll go through the process.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to any other board members that have had a chance to go through the presentation items or have other questions for Ms. Harding to be able to answer. That way she knows what is pending for the August presentation.
The curriculum is one of the things that is mandatory. So I'm in agreement with Mr. Gilliam on that. I think it should wait until August.
Okay. Are there any other questions from any of the other board members or comments for Ms. Harding to review? Otherwise, Ms. McAllister, was that a motion?
Yes, I'll make that a motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Judy McAllister for the Dream Beauty Academy to represent in August with the suggested changes and updates that Mr. Gillihan pointed out, as well as some changes that you, Ms. Harding, are wanting to make. And do we have a second to that motion?
This is Susan Witcher. I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Witcher. I will do roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Waive Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Janie Ross? I think Ms. Ross isn't able to take us off mute. Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. We still have quorum, so we are delaying that school application until August pending all the changes. And we will move on now. Thank you for participating, Ms. Harding, to the next item on your presentation, and that is skin and brow room, and that presentation starts on page 100. This is Ms. Jessica West is participating with us telephonically, and she's happy to answer any questions you have when we get to her piece. This school is located in Chattanooga, and it is a specialty aesthetics school. The floor plan, the 5 contracts, the contingency plan, application fees were received timely. Ms. West, if you can hear me and can unmute yourself, what is the square footage? I don't believe the floor plan actually listed it, and I needed to have that on my notes, if you could.
It's 1,100 square feet.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to the board, to anyone that has any additional questions for her.
Roxana, it's Mona. I have a question. Curriculum. I didn't see it.
Yes. So the curriculum, I was under the understanding when I talked to Roxanne, was already established under the rules and laws. So the curriculum, that I didn't think that there was a lot of room as far as changing that. So my curriculum would be the general, chemical, physical, that's listed under, in the state board laws and rules. So that wasn't relayed to me that I had to specifically dissect that for the specialty school, because I would be following what's written in the laws and rules.
And that is accurate. I think a lot of the schools do present it mostly just to let us know what book they're using. But if they are following the statute for the 750 hours for aesthetics, it's broken down by general, chemical, and physical, and there's no real additional breakdown unless they're also offering apprenticeship or something unique or a different book. So in her case, she's following just what the rules suggest.
And I would be using the Milady textbook as well.
I think that's somewhere in your statement, but okay.
I'm just, real interested, this is Mona again. I'm just real interested in the curriculum because I do have it on good authority that, and the name of your school using the technology or the word brow is like a red flag because there's some things going on with the Department of Health, who has taken over the micro needling and the microblading, which is a brow service. But I do know that there are cosmetology licensed schools, different schools that have that as part of their program, which is very, very confusing to students, graduates, and consumers. And I just wanted to see the curriculum basically to make sure that that was an inclusion based on industry.
It is, microblading would not be included in the curriculum.
Thank you.
Roxana, you answered the only question that I had, and that was the square footage. So
okay,
that's fine.
And Ms. West, is this going to be apprenticeship also, or just traditional education?
It will be, there are, on the application, there's 2 options. One is to do an apprenticeship where they would complete the 375 hours, and then I would have experience, 10-year or more estheticians who would take them on for the remainder of their hours, and then of course keep a log with that time spent with them, and utilizing people in the industry who, want to kind of groom them in their own establishment and kind of show them the ropes for what they would be doing there.
Fantastic, thank you. Do we have any other questions for Ms. West regarding this application? Hearing none, I will welcome a motion.
We have a motion for approval or denial.
This is Becky Russell, and I will make a motion to approve the school application.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. That is a motion to approve pending a field inspector and board member has a chance to visit the school and view the floor plan and any other, all the student document files. And at that point, they can make sure that the curriculum is in those contracts as well. Do we have a second to that?
This is Mona. I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Appenfield. We have a motion and a second. I will do roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Becky Russell?
Yes.
Kelly Barger? Ms. Kelly Barger? I'll come back to Ms. Barger. Ms. Judy McAllister? Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Ms. McAllister. Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Waive Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
Thank you. We got to hear you. Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. That takes care of our actual full school applications. Next on your iPad, we are on page 117, and this is Paul Mitchell, the school out of Murfreesboro and Knoxville campuses. This is a plan for distance learning. Mr. Kevin Johnson, I believe, has joined us. This is an email that we received from him regarding both of those campuses being able to offer distance learning as an alternative to the traditional offered methods. So it's not that the school is only going to be doing distance learning, but that they are choosing to use this as an alternative for students. Again, just a sign of the times and what we've gone through. Many of our schools, and we'll talk about this at the very end, have been able to run with virtual and distance learning. And you have before you on page 117 or have had a chance to review Mr. Johnson's presentation and his statement that the school is doing this. We would just need the board to motion that that is acceptable for them to continue.
Roxanna, I am here, and I also want to point out that should also include the Nashville campus as well.
Okay, all three. Okay. You are correct. All right, thank you very much.
This is Mona. I can make a motion that he continue with the on-site learning.
Fantastic. Thank you. We have a motion from Ms. Mona Sappenfield, and this is actually not online learning. During these times, it has been an interesting task to kind of look at it differently. The virtual and distance learning is pretty much still hands-on. You can ask questions. You're almost live, but not in the same room. So it really has been an incredible expansion to our world, if you will, if there's a good side to everything we've gone through. So this would actually be continuing that distance learning path. And we have a motion from Ms. Sappenfield. Do we have a second?
I will second that. Judy McAllister.
Judy, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second to allow Paul Mitchell the school's 3 campuses. This is Nashville, Murfreesboro, as well as Knoxville. And I'll go through roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan.
Roxanna, before I
Yes,
vote,
sir.
I had a question for Mr. Johnson. Kevin, is this just a continuation of the things we've been doing and getting in line for the approval from the accreditors and all that stuff to be able to continue down the road?
Absolutely, yeah. We're utilizing Zoom as our method. So, yeah, this is definitely trying to get ready for where finally the accreditors are looking at giving us an alternative here to be able to maintain in this new generation of COVID-19.
Roxanna, of course, I had sent you an email regarding that. Actually, it's the same thing. So I know exactly what he's trying to do here. Some of this is required for approval from the national accreditors to be able to continue these programs in the event this stuff goes forward. And also, as you said, can kind of open a path, hopefully, for future advancements. So this is the component that I myself will be requesting at the end. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what the next couple of schools are doing as well. And we definitely will talk in greater length at the end. So I welcome all our school owners that want to stay on board, just as an update to everyone of what we've gone through since the middle of March, pretty much. But we'll focus back for a minute then to Mr. Johnson's particular 3 campuses with Paul Mitchell. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions about these paths from any of our board members before we proceed? Okay, so hearing none, I'll go through roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Waive Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
And Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item on your presentation was on page 118, and this is Paul Mitchell, the school out of Memphis. Ms. Caroline Salmon is with us telephonically. She's happy to answer any questions you might have. In this particular school situation, they are requesting approval for them to continue the distance learning for the theory course, and then they are also going to be offering an advanced makeup program. The board has, at a previous situation, at least with one school, maybe 2, looked at the curriculum for the advanced coursework. As you know, our statute is set in the number of hours and the need for then the students to be able to test them, get licensure. So anytime a school does over and above that as a curriculum, the schools just inform the board mostly that they're also offering that. But I believe as well, in this case with Paul Mitchell, the school out of Memphis, that the students would still need the basic hours and could test and get a license, but the makeup piece has been presented for you as 100 additional hours if the students sign into the contract and that's what they wish to do. It wouldn't be something that they would turn hours in for. And then the distance learning, the same thing, due to these times and national accreditation. Now acknowledging these things, Ms. Salmon's available to answer your questions, but if everything's in agreement, the board would need to motion that they can continue this path.
Roxanne, I remember well that we have approved several of these in the past. I think maybe 3 come to mind for me.
I think you're right.
And it's exactly as you stated. They normally are required anytime they have a class that exceeds the state requirements. They need authorization in order to deliver that for the accreditors.
Correct. Yes, sir. Thank you for clarifying that. I think you're right. It is more time goes by. I think it's at least 3. If there are any other questions or any questions at all for Ms. Salmon, she's available to you. If not, I welcome a motion.
I make the motion to permit this to go forward. Judy McAllister.
Thank you, Ms. McAllister. We have a motion for them to continue this theory distance learning for their education, as well as the 100 hours of additional aesthetics work. Do we have a second?
Jenny Ross, I'll second.
Ms. Ross, thank you. I will do roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes, Roxana, I had a server problem and I got kicked out and missed the entire thing on this particular candidate. But the thing I'm curious about, since we are moving forward in this distance learning and the meetings, are done this way, I wondered if administratively, without bringing it to the board, if your office is legally able to approve all of these distance learning requests from the schools. It appears for me from afar, because I don't own a school, that it has been seamless and it's very contingent on approval from the creditors as well. So I just wondered if administratively your office could handle it, the approvals.
So that is a great question, and I think I put it at the end. I'm not sure why, other than to kind of get the meeting going and do the legal part. But you are correct. Actually, as of March 17th or 18th, I've sent email information to all the schools, letting them know that distance learning would not go against our statute. And we, of course, had an actual executive order asking us, due to COVID-19, to work with students and licensees so education wasn't hindered during these times. And we'll talk more in depth at that point. But so Mr. Gillihan, Ms. Patricia, those that are, Ms. Becky Russell, that are teaching in schools would have already seen and know this information. Most of our schools rolled out distance learning and started immediately due to this. And so what we're doing now on the record is officially, I think, stating that these schools are going to continue this path, and they'll have a letter in their file saying they can continue it. But you are absolutely right. My goal is, after we present the next two schools, is for the board to give me the authority to allow these schools to continue. It is not online education necessarily. Online is a different beast. It's you know, all of your education's online. You submit chapters, you do your exams online. These are a little bit different, and they've been extremely successful. We've had really great stories from students and schools and instructors that from the middle of March just had to roll with this, and we all got the wonderful opportunity to learn how Zoom works and WebEx meetings. So yes, I will ask the board for approval so that we're not delaying these going forward. So I appreciate that note, Ms. Appenfield, definitely.
Well, yes, and thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I stopped on Ms. Mona Sappenfield. Back to roll call. Ms. Amy Tansley.
Yes.
Anita Charlton.
Yes.
Becky Russell.
Yes.
Janie Ross.
Yes.
And Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, very similar presentation, a little bit, this is on page 125 if you're following along with the presentation. This is DCI Academy Distance Learning Plan. Ms. Destiny Cox has joined us if you have any questions. She is presenting a plan to use MindTap online coursework. So this is actually proven material. It's through Milady. And she is presenting a plan to be able to use this for her apprenticeship students as an alternative to traditional in-person education. This licensed school also, during the change to virtual learning, was able to use some of those methods. You had on the presentation her information regarding MindTap, and again, this isn't her own online material. It's actually through Milady, which has been proven to work. And I'll turn it over to any questions you may have for Ms. Cox.
Ms. Cox, this is Ron Gillihan. If you don't mind, I'd like to hear you kind of outline what you're trying to do here and explain to us how this is going to work for you, because what I'm hearing is that this is slightly different than what we just approved, which was the virtual learning scenario. So can you give us a little rundown on your program, please?
Yes. Hello, everyone. How are you? Just a little backdrop of what we've been doing since we were approved in March. We have been doing a hybrid program. So we've been using MindTap like thousands of other schools, but we needed to stay connected to our students, and we also incorporated 3 days of Zoom. And so Zoom, of course, is their virtual training. So with MindTap, it really helps in recordings, tracking the students' progress, also with testing. It's just considered an additional tool to help our instructors and also some of our students different learning styles. And on top of that, we also do the Zoom per 4 to 5 hours within the week. The students have to get a certain amount of time on Zoom, and then they have to also be recorded in a certain amount of time in MindTap. Some of the time, over the past 30 days, we've had instructors to actually be Zoom and MindTap at the same time, so we can make sure the students are doing reviews if they have any questions. So we've been consistently, I don't want to say like double working, but since we've been out, The students have to feel connected to you, especially alternative learning, and it was new to everybody. And so going forward, I would like to offer a similar online program as described with the other schools, but I'm still incorporating Zoom, and I'm also incorporating what we call a hybrid program, where the students would come in and have their summary. So they're not just online, they're not just doing virtual, they're not just seeing us on a computer screen, but they actually would come in and we will have that one-on-one assessment weekly. And so that's what I wanted to present to the board today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. That helps clarify a little bit. There's, for the benefit of any of the members who have not worked in these new programs yet, whenever you're doing something, and you mentioned, I believe, what was it, Zoom?
Yes.
When you're working in those programs, that is symmetrical work. That is the student and the instructor actively being engaged at the same time. They're being, you can see each other. That is kind of the way that you're making sure that the students are engaged and that they're actually in the correct formats and getting all the hours they're supposed to be present. So there's some of that safety issue that we've always looked at, and how are we tracking and keeping track. Now, whenever you move over into a program that's just, operating through MindTap or some other platforms that are available, now that is more of an asymmetrical application where it's more self-directed and there's less oversight of the actual hours that instead of being observed, we're just letting the student work through it on their own time. That's a little more difficult for me to get past if you're using it in conjunction with what you're doing in one of the Zoom or WebEx or those kind of platforms. I think that's an excellent and amazing thing. But if you're using it as a standalone for some portion, I think you might have some difficulties in that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, ma'am. No, you please go ahead.
No, it is not a standalone. It is in conjunction, and we do more of for right now, we're doing 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays as an overview in Zoom interactive program. But in the MindTap, it records their time. So it traces, and the instructors see the back office of it. So I can see what they're doing, and when we have those weekly evaluations, hey, you haven't done this, and so if those are not done, you won't get credit for them. And so we are constantly, I think we're harder on them now than, most of the time we were in the classroom. Secondly, every week the instructors have to unlock the assignment. And then we lock the assignment. So there are due dates. We have tremendous oversight over those, and the students do not get to move on continuously. We have to unlock them and say, as a class, we're moving on to the next chapter.
Thank you. That clarifies a lot for me. I'm sure others may have some other questions.
No, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ron. Board members, are there any other questions for Ms. Destiny Cox at this time?
I had a question. This is Becky Russell. I had a question about the instructor trainee program. It's showing on here that it is an accelerated hybrid training program of 240 hours, and I don't believe that meets the requirements.
I looked at that last night. 240 hours will be through the Zoom and MindTap. The 60 hours, I do apologize, are in-house. That's their assessments with the classroom and under a senior instructor. I will submit that to Ms. Roxana. I do apologize for it.
That sounds great. Ms. Cox, I'll wait to get that piece. And I think on your presentation, that was on page 126, but that's a great catch. Yeah, that'll need to maybe just add the sentence of what happens with the 60 hours. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Russell. That's perfect. If there are no other questions for Ms. Destiny Cox, do we have a motion? We know that she will be updating the portion of her curriculum breakdown for the instructor's training so that all 300 hours are properly listed. If there are no other questions and the board so chooses, we would need a motion to be able to accept this and a second or revise it.
This is Mona. I'll make a motion to accept Ms. Destiny's proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Yvette Granger. I second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Granger. We have a motion and a second. I will go through roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Wybeth Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
And Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. We have our last item under the school presentations, and then we will possibly, if it's okay with our chairman, Ron Gillihan, we'll skip to the legal report to give us a little bit of a break and a difference. So our next item is Georgia Career Institute, and they are on your presentation on page 128. If you're following along, we have Ms. Lauren Davis that is available telephonically to answer any questions you have. They are presenting a plan to offer the distance learning as an alternative to the traditional education. Their campuses are located in Murfreesboro and McMinnville. I am happy to turn it over to the board or any questions that you have for Ms. Davis.
Hello, Ms. Davis. Thank you for participating today. I guess I will ask you the same questions. I've gone through your application here. I'll ask you the same questions as previously. Can you tell me a little bit in your own words what it is you guys want to accomplish with this, how you're going to present it?
Absolutely. So we have developed, a hybrid program post-COVID-19. Our goal is long-term to submit this board to our accrediting bodies. We're accredited by the Council on Occupational Education. So their first requirement is approval from the state level. So that's the main purpose. Our goal is to create a hybrid program that the students can choose. We do have about 10% of our student body that loves 100% traditional education, so we're not trying to eliminate that. But we have seen a great need for these students to have flexibility to where we could do theoretical chapters via virtual learning. We're currently utilizing the lab platform through Pivot Point as well as Google Classroom. We've been very happy with Google Classroom, which includes all the Google Meet components, so we have that video component of back and forth. Learn About Beauty is very similar to MindTap and as far as the tracking methods go. So our goal is just to create a hybrid program to help students get flexible. All demos, practicals will be done on site. So this is just for those theoretical chapters.
Okay. It sounds very much like the situations with Paul Mitchell and the others that we've already looked at.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Davis before we proceed? Okay, hearing none, I would need a motion and a second to prepare a letter for GCI for them to continue their hybrid program and offer this distance learning for their theory in both of their campuses.
I would make a motion that we move forward with our proposed plan. This is Mona.
Thank you, Mona. We have a motion by Ms. Mona Sappenfield. Do we have a second?
I second. Judy McAllister.
Thank you, Ms. McAllister. And I will go through roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield,
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton,
Yes.
Ms. Waive Granger. Thank you. Ms. Becky Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross,
Yes.
and Ms. Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. And now kind of backtracking just a second before we conclude and move on to the legal report, I would like to go back to what Ms. Sappenfield pointed out. Since the middle of March, we have been communicating with our schools to let them know that distance learning, virtual learning is considered a definite option during these times and even moving forward. There was no real need to have an emergency meeting. We had Executive Order 15 by the governor that asked us to look at all the options for education, both learning basic hours and continuing education, so that students wouldn't be hindered and we could proceed in this new world. And so with that in mind, today we've presented 4 different schools that have a written plan before you because it was our first meeting. But if it pleases the board, I welcome a motion giving me my office and myself the permission to move forward with these presentations. If they are something over and above and unique and different, an online piece where the school is writing their own curriculum or creating their own book or something that by all means you as board members would have to review, then that would come before the board. But otherwise, if it is this hybrid plan or an alternative to distance learning using Zoom or WebEx or Google's or all the other programs that are now showing to work, then I would welcome a motion so that I can approve these. We will have a standard letter to present to the school so that they can use it for the accreditation purposes. And we did something similar in March. It was just simply an email that said that our statute doesn't keep a school from being able to do virtual learning due to the times, and we had an order backing that up. So moving forward, knowing that the board is in agreement with these hybrid programs, I think we are going to be able to continue sending those letters, and it could be that we just have a couple more schools doing this or most of our schools requesting it, but that way they don't need to be delayed. I will send those out, and then the accrediting agencies will be hopefully happy to accept that in Tennessee we've moved forward and allow our students more safety and our instructors and everyone the opportunity to use every method as learning tools. So I welcome a motion or any other conversation regarding this topic.
Hi, yes, this is Jessica West. The numbers are rising in Chattanooga. So starting my program after the and inspects the space and allows me to open starting the curriculum and students to accumulate their hours. Am I able to offer, not knowing really what's going to happen, a hybrid version where we can do general or chemical or theory somewhat online and then do like limited clinic hours students?
So Ms. West, with the Skin and Brow Room, correct? That's the school that you're with?
The Skin and Brow, yes. School of Aesthetics, yes. So, with being just now submitting the application today, and then upon the approval, the inspection part, would I be allowed to offer a hybrid program starting just because, like here in Chattanooga, the numbers are rising and there's kind of iffy if schools are going to reopen. And I, with promoting the program or having to have at least 5 students in the program, I feel like having in classroom, in its entirety may limit the interest that some have, where if I can keep my classes small, still kind of promote the program, would I be allowed to promote it as a program?
So If this motion that I just addressed and sought after, if the board members give me the authority to do these, you would be no different than our schools that are already open.
Okay.
The only difference is you are not approved yet. So you are still pending 2 inspections. And if your school meets all of the floor plan requirements, because you are offering in-person practical hours, and if your student files are accurate and have the curriculum in them and the license is approved, you would be identical to any other school in being able to present to me your hybrid program. And if it is similar to what you saw today with the 4 schools, to where you're doing some through a virtual distance learning, some still in person, your students have that option. As we had, I believe Ms. Cox stayed out, some students want the in-person, right? And they want to do all of it face-to-face, others won't, then you would have the same option. So we'll wait and see if the board gives me that authority to proceed. Your school would be treated exactly the same. Is that your answer, what you were asking?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Roxana, I make the motion to allow you to do as you ask.
Perfect. Ms. Judy McAllister, thank you. Thank you. We have a motion that would be allowing the executive director to proceed with issuing letters to the schools, allowing we'll call them hybrid programs. It is a mix of some sort of virtual and distance learning along with traditional, and we would need a second to that motion.
I second that motion, Jenny Ross.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. I will go through roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Mona Sappenfield? Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Thank you. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Nita Charlton?
Yes.
Yvette Granger?
Yes.
Rebecca Russell?
Yes.
Janie Ross?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That concludes a good portion of our agenda, and I would like, as we discussed before, and I believe Chairman Gillihan agreed, for us to skip to the legal report before we do the administrative pieces. So Hugh, I know you are on the call. Hugh Cross is the attorney for the program. We have Pam Spicer, who is has been our litigating attorney and has taken on new roles and is working a lot of programs. So I know that she's also going to welcome our newest attorney, Mike Underhill. Mr. Underhill is going to take over the litigating part of our program, which would be all the complaints. So I will turn it over to one or all 3 of them, and the board received the redacted legal report like you usually do. So I know that you've each got your notes on different complaints that you want to look at, and I will mute myself and turn it over to legal for now.
Good morning, everyone. This is Pam Spicer. As Roxana indicated, as everyone knows, I was promoted in January to Chief Counsel. We've been looking for my replacement. Mike Underhill started a couple of weeks ago. He'll be taking over as disciplinary counsel for this board. I will, of course, handle the in-person introductions as soon as we can get back in the office and have an in-person meeting. But for now, he is on the call with us. As it relates to the legal report, there are 140 complaints on the report. So if you have a question about any one particular complaint, if you'll identify that by number, because I'm working off my paper version this morning. But I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Hello, Pam. It's good to hear your voice again. This is Ron. Thank you for this report. I know you guys must have put a ton of work into this. I'm looking, I've got a couple of items that probably are just really simple, but I'm going to start out with case number 9.
Okay.
What I'm looking at here, of course, is about the student kits. Do we know if the school is not providing any kits for them altogether, or is there some kind of a back and forth going on with this? Can you give me a little more information?
Ron?
Yes.
Based on the summary, there was a follow-up inspection. I don't know exactly the date of the follow-up inspection. The only thing that we could do to know for sure would be obviously to send someone out again, but I don't know that that would be necessary at this point. Hugh, do you have any more specifics? Of course. Go ahead, Hugh. If you have anything.
This, Ron, when I'm looking at this, and I know we've talked to some people there at the school, but it doesn't indicate whether we've actually talked to any of the students to see what they had to say in this. Full disclosure, I've had some students who've walked into my school recently and said they've been to various schools, and this seems like it's kind of popping up in more than one place, that the schools are not giving them their equipment, or they're not providing what the state requires at the 100-hour level. Now, there's a list of those items of what the student should receive with the school assistance, and schools operate that a lot of different ways. But you know, it might be worth looking into some of the students to see if they've actually received those kits.
Ron, I think the issue is, looking back over this, is that there was an inspection and the inspector didn't find anything that led him to believe they weren't receiving the equipment. And then the complainant didn't provide any proof to substantiate the allegations. So I don't know, you know, where we would get talking to a specific student, or if we would even be able to talk to a specific student.
I understand. It makes sense. Okay, and I do understand the payment there with it's not permitted to pay students for their work, but this is it appears to be a benefit because the previous school they closed and they were making accommodations for additional travel to the new location, so that makes sense.
Right.
Okay. The next question I had was on case number 11, and I understand what's happened there. I'm afraid that we may run into a lot more cases like this, Pam. We probably need to figure out a path on how we're going to deal with folks that are in gated communities and areas that are secured.
Yes, Ron, and my understanding is this was a gated residential community, and the department obviously has some concern about sending inspectors into residential areas. There's only so much they can do when it is a residence or home, as you understand.
Absolutely. On case 19,
Did you say 19, Ron?
Case number 19, yes. I'd have to agree with that recommendation wholeheartedly.
Okay, yeah, and 16, 17, 18, and 19 are all related. I know that Hugh has spoken to Roxana about that, and that's how we're going to proceed going forward.
Pam, this is Becky. For that particular one, that has a date of December 19th, 2020. I think that should be 2019.
Yep, it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Pam, this is Roxana. If I could ask a question regarding this particular complaint, and if we can, and the board agrees, we can think about this. Given that we're missing student files and have done a thorough investigation, is there any way to block the testing for the school until we have some type of answer, or move to the next level, or do we need to leave the testing alone?
I would think until we have a hearing, we're not going to be able to block the testing.
Okay.
Obviously, if they were to agree to settle, obviously I haven't reached out because I didn't have the authority to do so, but you know, we can always revisit this at the August meeting if there's no settlement by then, and then figure out what to do about the hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Pam, what about, yeah, I'm thinking between now and August, you know, the school may still be enrolling students and potentially doing harm to them between now and then, or if they're not keeping proper records. Just something to think about. I don't know what I'm trying to say with that, but it stands out that there may be a danger to future students there.
And one thing we could consider, you know, I'll need to look at this further, and this would obviously involve possibly an emergency meeting. Let me look at it further. If we determine that we needed to do a summary suspension, I'd need to get that set up.
That's maybe where my mind was going with that.
And I'll need to talk to let me talk to the inspector and the investigator. They may be one and the same. I don't have the names right in front of me, but let me look into that, and then I can discuss it with Roxana, and we can go from there and notify everyone if that's something we need to look at before August.
Perfect.
Roxana, does that work for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
On question 20, or case 20, on the socials, are we going to discuss that, or are we going to discuss that in the reciprocity?
Is that Ms. McAllister?
It is.
Judy, are you on the complaints?
Yes.
Which complaint number?
20.
Number 20?
I guess I'm sorry, I'm not sure of your question. Of course, I was looking at this for the unlicensed activity, and there was no violation issued. So, of course, the recommendation is closure.
Is your concern, Judy, that we follow up with the social media piece?
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. But this has 2 individuals with similar socials.
Yeah, that's a different complaint number. Can you see what complaint number that is? Or Pam, does that ring a bell to you?
I'm looking.
What was the summary again? I'm sorry, this is Hugh. I didn't hear I heard complaint number 20, but I haven't heard anything beside that.
I think she's referring to a different complaint, not number 20.
And what was the summary again? Maybe I can remember.
Okay, the legal report that I'm looking at, it says number 20. The case is COS 201-70-29511.
What page are you guys on?
I'm looking at these on my iPad and it says page 7, but on the presentation, I don't know what page it's on.
The legal report is not on the presentation. The legal report was emailed directly to you all like we usually do because it's redacted and not that big.
Yes. Right.
So page 7 on the legal report for this month has case number 20, 21, and 22. But none of them are case 2017. They're all 2019 cases.
Oh, hold on.
You got it?
Maybe it's 20. Roxana, I'm not seeing anything, but with there being 140 on this report, it could take me a while to try to locate a specific summary and specific number.
Right. Ms. Judy, is it the legal report for June, not the legal report on the minutes, maybe from February?
Oh.
No, because the decisions aren't on this one. Okay, it says, hold on. This is not the correct report for some reason.
Okay.
I apologize for the confusion.
That's okay.
We're good. We're good.
So I want to recap where we left off on number 19, Ron. I'll look into that further and discuss with Roxana what I think we can do, if anything, before the August meeting. And then there was one change that needed to be December 19th, 2019. Perfect. Are there any other questions about the legal report?
Pam, this is Becky again. On cases number 1 and 11, both of these, one of them, the inspector actually went somewhere and looked through the window and appears that it's a shop, but they've never been able to catch anybody working there, and it's recommending closure. I almost like to see a letter of warning sent out to them, as well as with number 11, a letter of warning or instruction saying that, if this space is being used as a cosmetology shop, that would be unlawful.
On number 1 and 11, I can change it to a letter of instruction. I would hate to issue a letter of warning, given I don't have enough proof from the inspector, but I'm happy to issue a letter of instruction at this point.
I'd like to see that then, the letter of instruction, just so that they are clear that, we have had this complaint. I don't want to just close it and then continue doing something if they are. So even if it's just a letter of instruction, I think it's important that they receive something from the board.
I understand that. So that would be on numbers 1 and 11?
Yes, please.
Okay, I've noted that.
Also, case number 57, and I actually think it appears somewhere else in the report, but it was they moved and didn't give notice to the board that moved locations. And then they were told by the inspector to update their new address, and they still did not. They agreed to update, and then they still did not. At what point would we issue a fine for that instead of just, reminding them over and over that they need to do this?
You may be aware, at one of the last board meetings, we discussed within a same building location suite move that we were going to issue letters of instruction or depending on the situation and if it's an initial issue. Also, with this particular complaint on number 57, there was no violation found. I'm not saying that, obviously, given the appropriate circumstance, that we would not issue a civil penalty, but on number 57, this particular complaint would probably not be ripe for a civil penalty.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have inspectors going out there telling them exactly what to do and then ignoring their requests to do whatever. So,
and
yes, I do
and
remember
we are
that
on
conversation.
and we are on 57 issuing a letter of instruction. We can also note to follow back up with them to make sure, if it hasn't already been done since the inspector went out and then followed back up, of course, we can always open another complaint administratively if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll make a note on 57 to follow back up after we issue the letter of instruction to make sure that the change of location has been received.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had for the legal report.
This is Ron again. I'm sorry to keep piling into these, but I know we've got a long list here.
Oh, yes, no worries.
Case number 71.
Okay.
I'm presuming this is a school based on some of the terms used here.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any other information at all from the complainant on what this involves? You know, it's pretty vague, but it's just kind of a concern to me. If we're going in to examine files, you know, basic student records with enrollment agreements and such, may not be able to identify any situations like this. That might be something that could be referred to THAC or to some other agencies that would be interested in this stuff.
Ron, I appreciate the question. On number 71, one of the issues is, of course, this is an anonymous complaint, so it would be very difficult to refer this out. As you know from other reports, I always note if there's an issue that I think should be referred out, but given the fact that this is anonymous, it would be difficult for anyone to follow up on this. That's, of course, we sent the inspector out. There were no violations found, so there wasn't anything else we could do at the time.
I'm satisfied.
If we had an actual, if we had an actual complainant, that might be different, as you know.
I'm satisfied. That makes perfect sense, and I do absolutely see that side of it. It seems like in this report we've had a couple, like 72 also, that are complaints about refunds and some things like that to students. When I'm reading this one, what I'm really seeing here is that the complainant did not follow their procedures that were required in the school. So, and that's why we're going to close this one. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That's good. I've only got a couple more.
Okay.
On 122.
Okay.
Let me get there. Wow. A lot of scrolling. Okay, there it is. In this particular case, it seems like the school may be putting a lot of this burden on the student, whereas I believe that it's the school's responsibility to ensure that all of these logs, all these records, all these things are actually being taken care of and managed properly. So I'd probably like to see this one, I'm sorry, within the 120. I think I'd like to see this on 122. At the very least, a letter to the school reminding them that it's their responsibility to ensure logbooks and records and timesheets and all those are correctly maintained and correctly filed and stored and presented to the board on request.
Ron, I understand, and I will change that recommendation to a letter of instruction.
Okay, and I think probably the last one I had was, it looks like 137, and my question was just, is that a represent?
Ron, did you say 137?
Correct. Or is that just a follow-up for us?
No, that's a represent.
Okay, that was it.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, and while you're looking, if not, of course, I'll need a motion, and then we'll have to do a second and a roll call vote with the appropriate changes being made to the legal report. That would be number 1 and number 11, changed to a letter of warning. Number 16 through 19, I'll discuss with Roxana and circle back. The recommendation is not changed, but circle back if we need to bring that to the board's attention again before the August meeting. And then on number 122, change to a letter of instruction. And did I say letter of instruction on 1 and 11?
You did.
Okay.
No, I believe you said letter of warning on those.
I thought I did. I meant letter of instruction on 1, 11, and 122.
Okay. Good. Do we have a motion to approve the legal report with these necessary changes?
This is Mona. I'll make a motion to approve the legal report with revisions.
Second.
Kelly Barger, I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I will do roll call, and this is to approve the legal report with the amendments that Ms. Spicer has pointed out. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Waive Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross? Ms. Janie Ross? Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. We have quorum still, and that concludes the legal report. I will let everybody, thank you, Pam, and Mike, welcome on board. Thank you, and Hugh, thank you. I know Hugh's staying with us till the end of the meeting. We will get back to our agenda under the administrative pieces, and on your presentation, we are on page 136 if you are following along, and these are our felony applicants. I'll give everybody a moment to get there. And yes.
Before Ms. Spicer gets away, I have questions I just needed to answer, and I didn't know if maybe I should give her a call. But I just wanted to know that it's always noted that like a formal hearing is recommended on some complaints. I just wondered, is there such a thing as an informal hearing? I'm curious about our process.
Sure. Pam, are you still with us?
I am.
Okay.
Hey, first, congratulations on your promotion, Chief Counsel. Big deal.
Thank you. We don't have informal hearings. I mean, the closest thing we would have to an informal hearing would be a summary suspension. So the complaints come in, they're reviewed, they're presented on the legal report with appropriate action taken. The next step after that, if the case does not settle, is a formal hearing.
Okay. Are informal hearings and formal hearings videoed? I'm just curious.
No, not that I know of. I'm not saying that in the past there may have been some that were. Of course, there's a court reporter present at the formal hearing that is taking everything down. Of course, if we do an informal hearing, which would be a summary suspension, for example, of course, those are normally during the board meetings, so they would be being recorded or videoed or, whatever the case may be with the new normal.
Okay.
I know in the past, obviously, I've had summary suspensions, and those are during the board meetings.
Okay. But it wouldn't be normal to have an informal meeting in a private area with a few board members and you against on a licensee or whatever. That would be unusual.
No, that wouldn't happen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pam. Good luck.
No worries. Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you. I will let the board again tune back to the agendas. We are looking at our applications to test next on the agenda. And the first group that we will go through are our felony applicants. These applications are for requests to take the examinations. You have before you a request from Ms. Kimberly McCord, Ms. Nina Constanza, Ashley Huff, Nisherl Summers, and Brittany Lee. These applicants all have felonies within the last 3 years, or in this case, are currently incarcerated. The request is for them to take the Tennessee examinations, and upon approval by the board, the legal would send them an agreed order for a probationary period of 2 years, unless the board sees fit to do it longer. And once that order is signed, the individual candidates take their exams. As you are aware, PSI is able to go to many of our prisons and lockdown facilities where they can test and leave with hopefully a license to start their career in the industry. I'll let the board review those documents, and then I would need a motion and a second to proceed as we usually do with the agreed orders.
Make the motion for these applicants to test under the agreed citation. Judy McAllister.
Thank you. And this is for the agreed order for 2 years or a probationary period. Is that correct, Ms. McAllister?
It is.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
This
Kelly
is
Barber, I'll second it.
Ms. Kelly Barger, thank you. I think I heard you. I have a motion by Ms. Judy McAllister, a second by Ms. Kelly Barger. I will do roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Yvette Granger?
Yes.
Becky Russell?
Yes.
Janie Ross? And Ms. Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Okay, we have quorum. Thank you. That concludes our applications. We have one reciprocal applicant. Your reciprocity application is on page 158. This is an application for reciprocity of a restricted barber license from Florida. Give me just a minute. I thought I was on the right page. This application is from Ms. Margie Vega. Ms. Vega received her certification and her license in Florida in December of 2019 with 1,200 hours and a theory exam. I know the board is well aware of our at least a year back how many reciprocal applicants we presented. We've moved to a wonderful, very flexible plan of considering the individuals that substantially meet the requirements, and therefore the office is able to proceed with reciprocity applications very quickly, very efficiently, and more importantly, get individuals to a good place so they can start working and have less barriers to come into working in Tennessee. In this particular case, I don't have a recommendation. This is a little bit unusual, which is why you're seeing it. And we're again very blessed that there are fewer applications that we are stuck proceeding with. So it's not an actual master barber or barber license. It's a restricted license. It is effective from December 6, 2019 through July 2020, and it does show that the applicant did take the theory exam. We had this going on with questions, I believe, since the middle of 2018, but we now have the applicant. So I welcome any conversations, and then I would need a motion on how the board would like to proceed.
Roxana, can you explain more what do you mean by restricted license?
Well, it isn't anything that we have in Tennessee, which is one of the reasons that I'm not making a recommendation. I'm kind of stuck. In Florida's perspective, it is a license with only the 1,200 hours, and it would appear that there has been no training in chemicals. So that's why they're considering it restricted, and that was on the presentation on page 162. So where Florida does have 1,200 hours and only the theory exam, it would appear that at this school at least no training in chemicals was done. That is at least their board's perspective, and I have communicated in the past. I know the executive director from Florida, so she was kind enough to give us that additional piece on what they believe is missing, and therefore it's a restricted license.
Roxana, this is Becky. I'm having a really hard time with this because I did read what you said about what the Florida board said, that the applicant did not have any chemical experience. But if you actually look at her transcript from the school, she was taught the chemical information. So maybe she was taught it, but not tested over it. I'm just kind of confused as I don't know how to look at that now, because she does have some education, but not tested over it. So at a very minimum, I think she's going to have to take both of the exams.
And I welcome that thought, Becky, and that recommendation if you do. And of course, we can continue talking about it, but if you motion that, because I agree with you, and in her application even, she put that she did the 1,500, and she does have some additional diplomas and education on top of the 1,200. So it could be that the state board couldn't vouch for the chemical hours. I'm not 100% certain either, so it's a little bit unique.
Roxana, this is Mona.
Mona, you've cut off. Can you hear me, Mona? You might have us on mute, Miss Sappenfield. I can't, you started on the conversation, but then we lost you. Becky, I'll turn it back over to you. I know if Mona can hear us and she's able to present her question, she'll probably join us here shortly.
I would make the motion to send this applicant to test both theory and practical.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Becky Russell and a second by Ms. Was that Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Judy, thank you, to ask our applicant for reciprocity, and that is Ms. Margie Vega, to take both exams. I will go through roll call unless there's any other conversation or questions about this.
Roxana, just maybe you can clarify for me the requirement on licensure time. Has that been met here in this case based on our recent changes to that?
So
She was licensed in 2019.
right, and that's one of the main reasons that she had to be presented. We had stated under our last parameters evaluating what substantially meets is, and we had said 1 year, and so she hasn't. She would literally be at the 6 months. So there again would be the reason why there's not enough experience. But looking at her different her curriculum, as Ms. Russell pointed out, and her additional documents and diplomas about education, it would appear that she's done a little bit above the 1,200 hours. And so Ms. Russell's motion and Ms. McAllister's are to simply put her to take the exams. And as you know, both in the theory and definitely in the practical, she would need to, she'll be tested on the chemical pieces as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. I will proceed if there are no more questions with our roll call. And this is on our reciprocal applicant, Ms. Margie Vega. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
I'm going to have to say no on this one.
Okay. And I'll reiterate the motion. I apologize. The motion is for both exams to be taken. So we have a motion and a second, and going through roll call, we have a no from Mr. Ron Gillihan. Ms. Kelly Barger?
The motion is to have the applicant take both exams?
That is correct.
Yes.
And Roxana, this is Ron, and I misunderstood. In that case, I would change my vote to yes. I apologize.
Okay. Sounds great. So the motion is to have her take both exams. The theory, again, which it is clear that she took in Florida, and then the practical, of course, she would not have. So in this case, we are asking her to retake the theory, given that we require at least that year or the 1,500 to substantially meet. So we have a motion and a second for both exams.
Sorry, Roxana.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I told Mona if she did have a question, I know she seems to be having some communication issues, to relay that in the chat, and you could read that out loud. Do you see anything in there before we proceed with the vote?
Absolutely. Thank you. You're wonderful. Thank you for helping us. I don't see her on.
Okay, so you don't have anything. She didn't send you anything in the chat?
No, I had asked her if she could hear me, but I don't have any chats from her. That was it at 11:03.
Okay, great.
So let me know if she does reach you. I appreciate that, Dustin, and thank you. Without you, I'm not sure we could proceed with these meetings. So I really appreciate that. I don't want to miss hearing from anyone. So we will continue on the roll call. We have Mr. Ron Gillihan, who agrees with the motion and the second. Ms. Kelly Barger also said yes. We're on Ms. Judy McAllister.
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield, if you're on. Okay, so temporarily we don't have Ms. Sappenfield. Ms. Amy Tanksley.
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton.
Yes.
Ms. Wybeth Granger.
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell.
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross.
Yes.
And Ms. Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're still at quorum. Thank you. We will move on the presentation. And next, give me just a second. I want to make sure I don't skip anything. We have our miscellaneous applicants, and we have a total of 5 different things to review. If you will please, on your miscellaneous, we start on page 172 if you are going through the presentation pieces. The first one is a request for an extension of continuing education for cosmetology instructor license for Miss Sarah Smith. This is pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-4-114, where an instructor must complete the 16 hours of an approved training program within each renewal cycle. Ms. Smith emailed explaining that she had a death in the family, but also has taken to illness personally, and so she is providing a request. She had provided that request timely for the April meeting, but as you know, that April meeting was canceled, and she is aware that she cannot teach until she has met the requirement. In other words, taken the 16 hours. course. So she would like to place her instructor license on inactive status. And again, had we had the meeting in April, she would have been timely with this request. So if the board has any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we would need a motion to approve for her to go inactive until she can take her CE.
Roxana, this is Ron.
Yes, Ron.
I'm sorry. This is Ron. I believe, and please correct me, would she not have fallen under the protection of the governor's executive orders for, we had a number of CEU classes scheduled and lots of instructors that were scheduled for those during the shutdown periods. And I guess where I'm trying to go with this, she's entitled to a one-time exemption, but I would really hate to see any of those folks who were caught up by this shutdown to lose that opportunity if it might be otherwise covered under the governor's orders and waivers.
Correct. And that piece as well. So we can cover it now under that executive order 15, I believe. Don't let me mix up my orders. Yes. Yes, we were allowed that leniency to give individuals extensions and some options. And until they became available and our continuing education providers were able to launch their virtual platforms, we approved, I believe, at least 2 or 3 instructors to get all the way to the end of 2020 to take the sessions so that they would not miss out. And so several have taken advantage of that and now are in a different situation because, and I'll point out, many of our providers, if not all, are offering the CE virtually. Where Miss Sarah Smith is a little bit different is we're not considering this her one-time extension either. She is wanting to go inactive because the illness that she has is going to stretch out possibly. And obviously we all hope that it doesn't and she's able to take her CE and resume teaching. But for now, she's not teaching anyway. So she actually wants to go inactive in her case. And in order to come back to active, she would need to take the CE. That would have been a requirement either way. But the good thing is that many of our providers are offering the virtual course as well. So to answer your question, she would have fallen in that, but she needed to have timely asked to go inactive. And because the meeting was canceled, we've not approved her. But I believe there'd be no reason to not approve her request.
Understood. I was just trying to ensure that she didn't use that one time if that's all this was. So
correct. So
I make the motion to her request to go inactive. Judy McAllister.
Thank you, Judy. We have a motion for Ms. McAllister to approve Ms. Sarah Smith to place her instructor license on inactive status until she is ready to teach and take a course and come back to her instructor piece. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Ms. Janie Ross, thank you for the second. I will go through roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Welcome back. Thank you. Ms. Amy
Do I live in a forest and I lose my server quite a bit? Sorry.
We understand. It's part of the times, but thank you for coming back. Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Wybeck Granger?
Yes.
Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Susan Witcher?
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Ms. Jatsiri Guzman Verzunza. She is presenting her testing preparation, and this is a cosmetology instructor piece. This is starts on your presentation if you're following along on page 175. And Ms. Guzman Berzunza is an instructor licensed in the state of Tennessee. She is wanting to offer testing preparation coursework. And of course, as the board knows, for instructors to teach, they must be in a licensed school. Therefore, we've done this a few times. Anytime that an instructor is wishing to teach something that is not in a school, they present their plan to us. And we had an individual at one point, I think, that even had a book they wrote for testing preparations. So this is her material. If you have any questions, otherwise we would put in her instructor license file that she's been approved to teach this outside of a school scenario. And I welcome any questions or a motion for Ms. Guzman Berzunza.
There are no credit hours associated with this course, correct?
Correct, none at all. And the couple of times that we've approved this, we've not had any issues. The situation that could arise, which is the reason I think the board decided at one point to put this in writing and then prepare a letter and put that on the file, is in the event a student was to say, I didn't get these hours, or, you know, they're not teaching me at a school. Obviously, as instructors, they are the experienced individuals to teach and help students prepare for the exams. Especially in this case, Ms. Jatsiri has a Spanish component to her educational piece for preparation for the exam, but in many cases instructors really have students come back to them, as you know, Ron, so it's a good thing.
Roxana, this is Becky. I would like to see on this course that it would be a student who has completed a cosmetology course somewhere. I would hate for her, or even if it were in another state, but then to have some cosmetology education. I don't want somebody to be maybe buying hours somewhere and be able to take this course in order to pass the test.
And maybe I'm missing something. So these hours would not be provided to the state board, nor could this instructor put them to test. But you're saying to let Ms. Yatsiri know that she, on her plan, needs to state that the student must have finished their 1,500 hours?
I would prefer that it say, or that she knows that they had completed a course of instruction somewhere. Maybe it just is kind of a conversation that you could have with her, just to make sure that we don't have somebody coming in through a fraudulent mean and her teaching them how to pass the test.
I got you. Makes sense. Okay. Okay. I think I understand. And the next presentation is very similar, so I'm skimming back through these. We may elect to have the same request if the board sees fit, and if there is a motion to approve her teaching her educational plan. I welcome a motion if the board has had a chance to review and is comfortable with this.
These are essentially tutor programs.
That is correct. That is what they are. We don't necessarily regulate that. They would not be providing hours to the state board. They would not have the ability to submit students to tests. These are students that independently maybe are coming from another state and didn't take the exams and have been told to test. Maybe they're coming from another country and will be missing the exams. And so it would be any of those, or have been taking the exams and are struggling and need additional tutoring.
Do we have a motion?
With all that's been said about, the questions and so forth, as long as the student understands that there's no accredited hours or so forth, that this is for tutoring purposes, I would make the motion to allow this. Judy McAllister.
Kelly Barger, second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Judy McAllister, a second by Kelly Barger, with the clarification that these hours are clearly pointed out as tutoring for the examination, and the student must obtain all their education ahead of time for this. and we will instruct that and then just simply add this to the file. So I will do roll call for approval of this motion. Mr. Ron Gillihan,
Yes.
Kelly Barger,
Yes.
Judy McAllister,
Yes.
Mona Sappenfield, Ms. Amy Tansley,
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton,
Yes.
Judy Waive Granger,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Janie Ross,
Yes.
Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. And we have quorum. On page 193 of your presentation, this is very similar. I'm not aware of the two ladies teaching together or being familiar with each other, but this particular request is for the same thing, tutoring for the exam. This is from Ms. Tarika Fitzgerald. She's presenting this preparation for the exam plan, and she too is a cosmetology instructor. She would be able to, if the board agrees, teach outside of a licensed school, and we would be doing the same thing, making sure that she is taking on students that have otherwise completed their education and are simply needing tutoring for the exam. And if there are any questions, I welcome those. Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Sappenfield. I have a motion by Ms. Mona Sappenfield. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Second.
Ms. Janie Ross, we have a second. And I will do roll call on that. Mr. Ron Gillihan,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger,
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield,
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley, Ms. Anita Charlton,
Yes.
Ms. Wivette Granger,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Janie Ross,
Yes.
and Ms. Susan Witcher.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the presentation, under our miscellaneous category, we have Ms. Yasmin Manjuyani. This is a request to waive the need to retest. This is pursuant to Rule 0440-01-.10, which states an applicant must apply for and pay for the original license within 6 months after passing the examinations. The board may, for good cause, waive this requirement. The board has previously authorized myself to approve extensions for past the 6 months for up to 1 year for good cause. In this particular case, Ms. Yasmin did not have the current documents as a qualified alien when she passed her practical exam in August of 2015. She is requesting that the board waive the need for her to retest, given that now her immigration status has been updated.
Since I have been on the board, we have and I think to stay consistent with our last ruling, we did approve this. If I can recall.
You're coming in a little bit choppy, Mona. Let me make sure that I understood you, that you think that we've approved something similar to this in the past. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, Roxana.
Yes, yes. And we have anything past that year, I do not have the permission to do. So we've presented at least one, if not two others that have missed this deadline due to this Verification Entitlement Act that we must, that we ask people to complete when they apply for a new license that says you're either a U.S. citizen or as a qualified alien, you have certain documents you need to present. So you are correct. We've done that in the past. And because it's past my timeline to be able to approve this, I do have to bring it before you. I don't know that we've ever approved one this long, but as all of you are aware, immigration documents now are obviously taking longer. So I welcome a motion to put her through if the board sees fit.
I make the motion to approve.
Ms. Ross, thank you. We have a Ross. A motion by Ms. Janie Ross to approve her license in this case, so she would not need to retest.
I'll second that motion.
And a second by Ms. Mona Sappenfield. Thank you. And I'll do roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan.
I'll vote yes on this, Roxana, but I also want to pose the question. why did the school not catch her immigration status before they allowed her to immigrate? Before they allowed her to enroll. We might need to take a look at that.
And I'm happy to add a little bit to that on the schools. I know in 2015 we were already requiring this. So there's nothing that says that the schools could not enroll an individual that is intending to go back to their country, possibly, right? During the continuing education sessions for instructors, I've been talking about this, but probably not as much now as in 2014 or so when it became a very clear path that we needed to have these documents. So the schools could enroll a student without this, without any problem. I think they just need to have the very clear conversation that we cannot license them without proper documentation for qualified alien status. And the same thing would apply for the exams. PSI has a workaround even for the Social Security if needed, because applicants could complete education and test and go back home with that information. So the requirement is really for licensure, if that helps, Ron.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so we have a motion and a second, and we are doing roll call. Mr. Ron Gillihan has agreed to approve that. Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Wivette Granger?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
And Ms. Susan Witcher. Ms. Susan Witcher, are you still with us? Okay, we still have quorum, so we are okay. Ms. Witcher, I knew was going to have to leave us at some point, so we understand. And again, we're very blessed. I think at least 2 of our members are on vacation calling in, and Ms. Witcher was one of those, so I appreciate it. So we have approved, therefore, that license. The last piece under our miscellaneous is on your iPads as well, not your iPads. I keep referring back to that habit. On your presentation, if you wish to follow along, this is for a course provider for continuing education. It is actually incomplete. So what I'm presenting for you is Hair World Education. Miss Tiffany Curry is a licensed instructor. She is providing coursework and 3 different dates to offer the instructor continuing education sessions. These 3 dates are planned to be held in Memphis. I had communicated with Ms. Curry earlier on asking for a full completed agenda, and that is not part of what she was able to present. So I've had a hard time reaching her as a follow-up, but I don't want this delayed until August if in fact the board reviews it. It is curriculum for teaching methodology, so it would meet our minimum requirements for the 16 hours. However, at this time, we don't have the agenda breakdown for those hours. So if the board chooses to approve this, she has listed 3 different dates. I don't know if in fact she'll be ready to do the June session or not for June 28th and 29th, and she may be able to do it virtually. But in any case, I will not be adding this to the board's website under our approved courses unless we have a breakdown of the 16 hours for the agenda, similar to everybody else's documentation that we've added. But as long as I get that breakdown, if the board sees fit, we would need a motion to approve her to offer definitely the September and December coursework. And if she's ready to do the June as well, we will update the board's website as quickly as possible. I have been updating this provider list almost every week. So if any of you have looked at it, your cookies might take you to an older version. We've been continually updating those courses as they were able to do the virtual piece because I didn't want that missed out. So it has been updated a lot. We would add this course only if the board approves it today and if I get the agenda. Does anyone have any other questions regarding this?
I just wanted to comment that if she's holding that in Memphis, she's going to have to limit her registration to 50, and she's going to have to do all the social distancing as well.
that would apply to any of our providers. The social distancing is expected not only for the courses, but even in our shops. And so that would be the case. So you're absolutely right. She would need to follow the local requirements because 6 of our counties don't just follow the governor's orders, but they may have some more restringent items. So that would definitely be the case. If this agenda is updated, yes, Ron.
On her schedule that she's got listed, she's got the dates and the start and finish hours in there. She doesn't have the breakdown of
correct
of what the curriculum is, what the breaks are. Those.
Right.
I'm a little concerned about this, particularly if she hasn't been able to reach back to you and get the information you need at this time.
And I understand completely. If the board sees fit, I'm perfectly fine with this delay until August. I know for a fact it's missing those pieces. And when we did communicate, it's been over a month. It was about the June session. I just didn't think by June any of our providers would be able to do an in-person. They definitely could now, but it is, as Mona pointed out, a little bit more difficult for the social distancing, but doable. But I welcome a motion, and it can be to delay it till August, or it can be to approve it pending the agenda submitted, whatever you see fit.
I would suggest if we would approve late, or I just think that she could get it together by August, since, if she wanted it for September and fall sessions, that, that would give her the time to do it for sure.
So Mona, is that a motion from you that we represent her in August, as long as she then presents the breakdown for the agenda? Or did you want to approve her now as long as she submits the agenda? Ms. Sappenfield, you've got me, you're on mute. If you could reiterate your motion.
I will make a motion to approve her with her agenda today, provided she does do that by August. If not, she could present in August. Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, Ms. Mona Sappenfield is making a motion to approve her today, provided that she presents an agenda. And as long as I can review the agenda and add her, she would be approved. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, so we have a motion to go ahead and move forward as long as the agenda with the breakdown of the 16 hours is presented. And I don't know that that'll be fast enough for the June session, but that would be at her discretion and her timeline. At least we've moved it along. Do we have a second to this motion?
I second.
Ms. Judy McAllister has seconded. And so I will go through roll call to see if everyone's in agreement to proceed as this is with a revised agenda that gives us the breakdown that all the other providers offer. Mr. Ron Gillihan?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Barger?
Yes.
Ms. Judy McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Mona Sappenfield?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tansley?
Yes.
Ms. Anita Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Wivette Granger? Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Janie Ross?
Yes.
And Ms. Susan Witcher, are you still with us? Okay. We still have, I believe, the 8 in quorum, so we will proceed. And we are down on our agenda to last few items, so thank you for hanging in here and listening to me. We are on the director's report, and the director's report is short and simple. Everyone was emailed the information. This is part of the presentation. We are looking at our financial numbers for fiscal year 2020 between July and March. So at the August meeting, hopefully we will have a closer perspective of the full fiscal year. An additional $46,848 of additional surplus was added, bringing our total for this fiscal year and in our surplus at $944,706. And that's a good surplus. It's not 1.5 or twice what we normally need for expenditures for a year, but it's definitely a good amount. And I didn't see any things that flagged me that we needed to discuss, but I open any questions that you have at this time. And this is mostly informational piece. As the board's aware, we present this, or I try to at every meeting, and at the next one, I'll have some licensing numbers as well. Were there any other questions before we proceed?
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you very much, Ron. Okay, we are down to our new business items, and we've talked about this quite a bit already, so I just want to recap. And I know Mr. Gillihan wanted to say a couple things as well regarding the virtual pieces. So the first piece, not to dwell on it again, but I want to thank everybody for participating telephonically through this WebEx meeting. This will very likely, or at least possibly, be our August meeting again. Either way, I always want to make sure everybody looks at the website, because that'll inform you whether it's being done only online or possibly both ways. Our board members are going to be encouraged for any of our meetings that you prefer to call in to always do so. We want to take into account your safety. Obviously, needing to travel can become difficult, and so this is our new world. Along these lines, we've talked about how this has impacted our schools, and I want to say more than half of our schools, private schools, as well as the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, the TCAT schools, they rolled out some sort of virtual distance learning almost immediately. By the middle of March to end of March, all schools had some resolution to this, and it was part of Executive Order number 15. So we were able to allow this path and go pretty seamlessly. I was very, very, very proud, and I commend all our instructors for doing this so that students could continue their education. And so that worked very well. We've touched on our continuing education providers a little bit as well. So I do want to let everyone know that we've also been very blessed that our providers that are offering the 16 hours for our instructors have launched the coursework virtually. And if you haven't had a chance, definitely look at that list available online. You will see that a couple of courses changed dates or had to be rescheduled to meet this requirement, but we held our first virtual continuing education session that had been scheduled for March, and that was delayed to May 17th and 18th, and Ms. Stephanie Brown with the Educator Success Seminar was able to do hers virtually. I participated on it, and I know Ms. Granger did as well. So if she's still on board, we'll welcome her input. It was very dynamic. It was uplifting. People participated. We could all see each other, but it was great from the perspective of no questions were missed, which is great. That way instructors don't leave with things lingering. She really did a phenomenal job, and I have every confidence that our other approved providers that are using this method are going to be able to succeed as well. And so it'll be good to know by next year, maybe when they present new dates, maybe get some feedback from them. If you have signed up to attend a session, if it's virtual, I think that's a great thing, because you would still, as a board member, be able to participate, be able to join at no cost. And more importantly, I welcome those evaluations and your feedback to the board. Ms. Granger, are you still on the call with us? Okay, I think Ms. Wybett had to leave us. So I know that she was not able to do the full 16 hours. But
No. I'm here.
you're there. Good, good. I'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
But I missed about 3 minutes of it.
Oh, then you were on the full 16 hours. Then please update the board. Anything you'd like them to know about the session.
Oh, okay. So, I'm sorry. I was kind of moving around. So the session was really good. It was as energetic as it would have been if it was face to face in person. There was a lot of little tidbits that she that I witnessed, as far as giving them homework and things to notice, to integrate the teaching methodologies. And also, one of the biggest things that I was impressed by, that she was able to reach way more people virtually than she would have that I think that she would have she wouldn't have been able to make that number if it was face to face. So I think it was a good thing.
That is fantastic. I want to thank you. You touched on a good point, because when I was able to present the rules and laws like I normally would, obviously it was great to not travel, right? So that saves the board money with us needing to go to these places to be in person. I think from the feedback and the evaluations I've read that people were they still really liked it. There were no negative comments that I was able to see, so that was great. And at one point I tracked that there were 73 participants. Our smaller sessions range anywhere from 10 to 30 usually. So to kind of piggyback on Ms. Granger's point, I do think that she was able to reach a lot of those instructors that had to be delayed or were concerned about stay-at-home orders and their safety. They were able to participate this way, and it was awesome to see the faces and the energy. So I think that's all I have. Thank you, Ms. Granger, for being there with it. And the same thing, if as board members you have signed up for your sessions, I believe they are all still going to take place. I included the new list on the presentation, but it's also on the website to make sure that you still sign up and attend those. Thank you. Any questions from anyone else regarding how these sessions are continuing? Anything on the school education? The board has already given me permission to move forward with those letters, so I'll be doing those. Okay, the only other thing that I have on our minutes, if you will, in our agenda is an update on PSI exams. I didn't want to miss out on this. PSI was also, of course, impacted due to COVID-19. All their sites had to be closed at some point in March, between the middle of March to the end of March, and they remained closed until about the middle of May, depending on the actual site location and ownership of those locations. The dates varied, but PSI has an update on their website, and their latest update has also been added to the board's website for students. All their sites, it's my understanding that all their sites are back open. It's, of course, just going to be a delayed process to get everybody back into testing. So that has been the only slowdown that we've actually had due to COVID-19, is the fact that some of our students are delayed in testing. And so now they've got to find the space. But I know that PSI is accommodating everybody. They're back on board. So we are very excited to have the exams going again in their new normal. And that's the last piece that I want to talk to everyone about. I think someone that's driving, if you could all make sure that we're on mute. Thank you. That was exactly it. Okay. So PSI has a new process that they have been working on for quite a while. It was in the works before COVID-19 came into our world, and we were under this unique situation and difficult times. They had been testing a theory exam to be proctored online, and they have completed their testing. They have it almost ready to roll out. And so that is not the practical, it's the theory that if for those of you that haven't gone to any of the sites, or it's been a while since you took it, you still would go in person to the site. And so applicants, if the board approves this, applicants would have the option to still go in person to take the theory exam, but they could also take the theory exam from their homes. PSI has the methodology with which to look at the applicants, or the candidate, if you will, their surrounding, to make sure that they don't have anything on the table. They have been doing a lot of testing to make sure that possibility of cheating is still covered, and they're very comfortable with this process. It is not live yet. So what we have looked at is their proposal to launch this within the next 3 to 6 months. I'll reiterate, it is still the student that's going to pick if they want to do an in-person theory or a virtual theory exam. and it would be available to do as long as the board is comfortable with this. I'll be presenting this path to all the programs that are under me that test with PSI, and within the regulatory boards, we have probably 8 or 9 programs that test with PSI. And so as long as the board is comfortable, we'll continue to review that. Also, PSI is available to show this during a meeting. So if the board would like to see it, whether at the August meeting or the October meeting, we can definitely have them participate and answer any questions you have. 4 of us directors participated with PSI. They answered all our questions. It's a great thing, and they had it in the works, as I mentioned, way before this hit. So now they are hurrying as fast as they can to do it right, but to launch it for those programs that would like to do this. I think it's going to be a great thing for the cosmetology and barber industry. I really do, because one person is still going to be watching the student, which is what happens with the theory anyway. A proctor does not stand behind the student during those theory exams. It's very different from the practical one. So I welcome any questions that the board has, and if you're inclined for us to at least continue researching this, it's not available, but I have let PSI know that we are very interested. As regulatory boards, we're interested to see how they're going to launch this really for all of our programs. But then if we are certain that we do want to offer this, we would, whether now or at the August meeting, need a motion to make this available when PSI has it ready to go. So I welcome any questions you have.
Roxanne, it's Mona again. I had a question on like the open-ended questions. Like, for instance, the example they gave was like on toners. A toner is, I mean, I could answer probably 15 answers to that. So is there like a right and wrong answer on these things? And I guess I'd have to ask Becky, Russell, you know, like, is it like what you're teaching? Is there a statement that toners do this and they have to have that one correct answer? I'm just curious about, I've never seen open-ended questions on this test before.
So if I could reiterate, and Becky can add, and I know that Ms. Russell has participated in the exam review. So every 2 years, we meet per the contract as subject matter experts to look over those questions. Open-ended questions, as you're calling them, really still have to have one correct referenced answer in the book. There's no such thing as an open-ended question that can have multiple answers. That would not be a good question, and it would have been taken off the exam. So it is something that it's not written in that way for 2 or more options. There is one accurate answer, and the subject matter experts, which are made up of educators, definitely a school owner, possibly. I am involved in those. We bring all the different disciplines to the table as subject matter experts to review those questions. The great questions, meaning great, if 99% are testing and getting it right, it's no longer a great question. It should be kicked out. It's not testing anything. And those questions that no one or very limited are getting right, that's not a good question either. So your subject matter experts, and Ms. Russell has been on that panel many times, they make sure that those questions are accurate and not open-ended, but have a true correct answer and can be referenced. Mona, did that answer your question? And I welcome Ms. Russell's input, obviously.
That did answer my question. I participated on that panel in Nashville a few years back. So I don't know, it's just the way that, I don't know, either it was a poorly constructed question or it was open-ended, and you answered my question. Thank you.
Absolutely. You are so welcome. Do we have any other questions regarding the PSI's path to this virtual theory testing? If we don't, the motion, if we make one, would simply be for us to welcome that when it is available, but we can go however the board chooses on this.
Roxana, this is Ron. I have had some experience with this type of scenario, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I think we would be absolutely foolish not to embrace this and going forward. I think whenever they are ready to open it out or roll it out and present it, I think we ought to be ready to move on that. So if someone needs to make a motion or someone has other feelings, my personal opinion is that I think it's great, and we should move forward and be willing to accept this.
Thank you, Ron. I really appreciate that. I have volunteered. I think I have real estate appraisers is with PSI, auctioneers, home inspectors, land surveyors has a piece that tests under PSI as well. And of course, Cosmetology and Barber program all have PSI components. Real estate, which is a huge program, tests with them. The contractors test with PSI. All of us and several of the security programs for alarms and so forth also are under PSI. We all agreed at the meeting that we were able to participate, and it was with video cameras watching what they do and how they see it. We were very happy to know this had already been in the makes, and it sounds like a great thing. So we all offered our programs and said we are pretty sure our board members are going to be in agreement. So thank you, Ron, for reiterating that. And yes, I think we would need a motion to continue.
Roxanna, I would make the motion to accept that. I think it's a great idea.
Fantastic. Thank you. Judy McAllister has a motion. Do we have a second for this?
Second the motion.
Ms. Janie Ross, thank you. And you'll all be happy to know this is about our last roll call. And so we have a motion to accept the path that PSI has developed for virtual testing of the theory exam once they have it ready. And by roll call, I'll start with Mr. Ron Gillihan.
Yes.
Kelly Barger.
Yes.
Judy McAllister.
Yes.
Mona Sappenfield.
Yes.
Amy Tanksley. Miss Amy Tanksley. I see Amy, but I don't hear her. We'll come back. Miss Anita Charlton.
Yes.
Miss Wivette Granger.
Yes.
Thank you. Miss Becky Russell.
Yes.
Miss Janie Ross.
Yes.
And I believe Miss Susan Witcher has already left us. Yes, ma'am.
Roxanna, this is Amy. I'm sorry. Yes.
You're good. You're good. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. And Miss Susan Witcher is not here. We're good. We still have quorum. I appreciate that. That is all that I have. I want to make sure to have given everybody an opportunity for any questions, comments that you have, and otherwise, I believe we've covered everything that is on our agenda. I will be sending the board members the 2021 meeting dates. I just knew we had a lot to cover today and didn't want to add to that, but we have reserved meeting rooms for 2021. And so I'll send those so that everyone can start reviewing their personal calendars and make sure those dates make sense. And in August, we'll put those on the record. But otherwise, I'll turn it over for any other questions and comments we have. And then Mr. Gillihan, I'll let you adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Do we have any other information or things to come before the board?
Ron, I just wanted to comment because I got lost on my server when I had this thought, but I'm reading where quite a few states that where tourism and resorts are very big industry in their states, they're advocating some of the requirements for cosmetologists so that individuals would not be taking the chemistry test and things like that, so that they could work in that hotel resort environment just blowing out hair. And it kind of addresses the blowout bar need, but it does. That's why we, like today, maybe for the first time, or we will be seeing restricted licenses that come to the state. So I just, that has been brought to my attention in several things.
Thank you, Mona. That's true. There are some changes afoot all across the country, and some of them are just industry driven. Some of them are COVID-19 driven, and we're in a unique time period. I'm going to have some comments at the end about some things that have gone on since March, but I want to give everybody else an opportunity to say whatever they may need to before we adjourn.
And hey, this is Dustin. We did have a question in the comments section. Jessica West wanted to know the inspection date for school. I don't know if that's something somebody wants to answer on the back end.
And I can, Ms. West, if you hear me, if you are ready to be inspected, you'll need to send me an email. The board has approved for the school pending both inspections. We take up to 10 days to send a board member and field inspector. So if you are ready to be inspected, send me a quick email and I will start that process to fit you into their calendar. Thank you.
And thank you, Dustin. Is there anybody else? Okay. Well, I'm just going to make a couple of quick comments here just to congratulate our staff on the record. During this time, the folks down at the office, Roxanne, all your folks, legal, everybody involved, our inspectors, they've just been doing amazing, outstanding work. We all know the circumstances we're living in, but just to kind of roll the calendar back just a little bit, the scenarios we've been going through started back early in March, particularly for downtown Nashville and Wilson County and Mount Juliet with the tornadoes. That's been so long ago now, it seems like it's almost a dream. But we actually lost a number of shops and places that were damaged. At least one I know of was leveled. I want you to know that your support staff in the office and all the folks behind the scenes have worked amazingly hard to help those folks get back up and running with being ready for inspections as soon as it was possible with the COVID situation. I want to let you know that there were a lot of shops prior to COVID that were in pretty bad shape after those tornadoes. They lost staff. People had to seek other employment. But I want to really brag on our industry for absorbing those folks. I can tell you many, many stories that I've worked with that neighboring shops, competitors took in barbers and cosmetologists to work in their shops without the usual, business competitiveness. They really came together to work as a group. Hey, you need a place to work, come work here. And, we're not going to try to, take your clients when you leave. We're working together on this. So I was really heartened to see that going on. We've got a lot of shops across the state who are in tremendously bad condition economically because of the situation, but they're coming back. They're working together, and by all information that I see, they have weathered the storm. Unfortunately, there's going to be some that won't make it, but they are really, really trying across our industry to hold each other up and lift each other up. So I want to say how proud I am of our industry for that. And one last thing, in this day of deregulation and all the processes that come down the pike and kind of impact our industry, I believe now under these circumstances that this is a time for us to shine and rise and show why licensure is such a good thing, why licensure is part of professionalism, and how our training actually helps us to be absolutely prepared to deal with what we're facing with COVID today. So I'm really proud of our industry, and I'm really proud of all the staff, Roxana, Pam, Hugh, Mike, welcome to the team. Glad to have you here today. And with that, I'm going to hush and just say I'm really glad that we're able to have a meeting today. What a privilege. So if nothing else is out there, we'll get the motion to adjourn.
Ron, before we do, and this is Roxanne, I want to thank you. I'm so glad you said what you said. As you all know, but definitely I know you've taken part on a lot of different work group sessions we've had to jump in and help on. So I appreciate you adding this, because in my focus on the agenda, I was neglecting some very important pieces. This has been a team effort, and we are just, I'm like you, I'm very impressed with the industry and the things we've seen, but my team is phenomenal, and I just want to brag on them again. Our field inspectors hit the shops again as soon as the stay-at-home orders were lifted, and the phase one included some of our shops and some of our services being able to be allowed. So we have been nonstop updating the website on all the governor's decisions and the recommendations made by the Economic Recovery Group. So for those of you that haven't kept up with them, they're on our website. We have also done probably 6 big email blasts to our licensees, and by that I mean shop owners as well as individual licensees, and then of course the schools, just updating on everything that's going on the guidelines and recommendations. And with that, as of Friday, we've inspected about 700 plus shops, which is great given the times. Obviously, not every shop has reopened, but our field inspectors are nonstop. They are there to educate, right? Because the industry wants to do things right. And sanitation's what you do. I mean, so this has been a really true test, and the desire to reopen has been across the country, not just here, that we've all seen. So it has been a wonderful thing. We have tried the best we can to communicate through emails and the website. And so what is happening now is our field inspectors go to the shops, those shops that are following the guidelines that are pretty clear, that we are sending them, the inspectors have posters for those shops because they are businesses that have pledged to do it right, and that is such a huge thing. And so we're going to be working backwards to mail those that have been inspected already, now that we have these beautiful posters for businesses. But just like other industries are doing, if we're following the guidelines, the hope and desire is that we get to a much better place, you know, daily, weekly, monthly, and can see this and beat this and move forward. But I think our shops are doing phenomenal. We're down to about 12% of non-compliance, and I only bring that up because so many of you are in the industry. We want to encourage everyone in the industry to do their part to follow the guidelines and do things right. And for the most part, obviously, people are. If we're down to just 12% not following all these things, it keeps getting better. So I commend you all and thank you for everything. And I think that's the only piece that I definitely had wanted to touch on. So thank you, Ron, for bringing it up.
Thank you, Roxana. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn. Judy McAllister.
Do we have a second?
Second motion. Jenny Ross.
Thank you. It is 12 on the dot, and we have a motion by Judy McAllister and a second by Janie Ross, and it is the last time you will hear me do roll call. I want to thank each and every one of you, including members from the public that participated telephonically. So to end the meeting and do a roll call vote, I'll start with Mr. Ron Gillihan.
Yes.
Kelly Barger.
Yes.
Judy McAllister.
Yes.
Mona Sappenfield.
Yes.
Amy Tansley. Amy, I hear you, I think. We'll go with Anita Charlton.
Yes, and thanks for everything.
Thank you. Waive Granger.
Yes.
Becky Russell. Miss Becky Russell.
Mute.
Oh, she's on mute. I think you're still on mute, Becky. There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Miss Janie Ross.
Yes.
Thank you. And Miss Susan Witcher, I think, has left us. The only one else was Miss Amy Tansley.
I think she's left the call.
I think she's
her name on here.
Sounds good. We have Mr. Gillihan. I'll turn it over to you to end the meeting. I think we have motions and roll call to adjourn the meeting.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.